All right, everybody, here we are. It's me again. It's Saturday, August 17, 2019, my newest segment of Markets, a Look Ahead. And depending on your perspective, it's either going to be very lovely or it's going to be a nightmare. It really is a double-edged sword here. For our country, what we just found out, this was announced last night, is going to be a nightmare. For the stock market, it's going to be rally mode. And we're going to talk about that. So here we go. Last night, now I want you to think about the timing of this. Last night, after the market closed, Friday night, by the way, with no fanfare, it was announced that, again, for the second time in a week, the president is offering China concessions with regard to trade. Specifically, our president has chosen to take multiples of products that we import here from China and remove the tariffs. Again, you almost hear nothing about it, but let your fingers do the walking. Don't believe me for anything. Look it up for yourself. This is going to be kept under the radar. Understand, for a lot of reasons, this is why the timing is important, why it's released on a Friday night, why it's released after the market closes. But believe me, market participants like myself pay attention to these things because it lets me know, it lets us know, us lions know, how to position ourselves in this market. So, again, this is very stock market positive. Why? It will be looked at by the market as a positive thing. This is not good for America. We want a real trade deal. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, let's lay out the facts. China has been winning with regard to trade for a very long time, and I thought finally we were going to get someone in here who's going to do something about it, but no. We just lost the trade war for one reason and one reason only, to support the stock market. It's not about getting a good deal anymore. Again, do you believe that an announcement like this would have been made, let's say, during prime hours where people would pay attention? Of course not. This is what they do. It's a strategy. It's very simple. Now let's back up further and try to gain a perspective on, again, markets a look ahead. So we found out on this Wednesday, when the stock market fell 800 points, the president got on the phone with the Wall Street banks, the CEOs of the Wall Street banks. That alone, that to me, honestly, and I know there are some people that are going to defend that, but if it were President Barack Obama who did that, they would think there was something up. Again, because it's President Trump and they have to support him no matter what he does, they're going to spin this as a good thing. But I think if a sitting president gets on the phone with the CEOs of Wall Street banks, the day that the stock market drops 800 points, it's probably not in our interest. And it's very suspiciously or coincidentally, I don't believe in coincidences, the following evening, I mean, come on, a story gets floated out there that the Federal Reserve is about to, or is going to institute more stimulus, and then we get a big rally on Wall Street the next day. You believe that's by coincidence? No way. This was a crime, in my opinion, and no one will get in trouble. Insider trading from the highest office in the nation, colluding with Wall Street banks. I don't know how anyone else can see this another way. So that was the first setup, and I want to explain to you again what happened. This normalized the yield curve to a certain degree. Understand, look, I don't care if you sit there and you watch the mainstream financial channels and they're parading out all of these characters who are trying to explain to you that you need to ignore the yield curve. That's what they're doing. Oh, the yield curve, it's different this time. Are you kidding me? No. The fact that the yield curve, and not just the yield curve, the action in the bond market was so extreme over several days, it got a lot of people frightened, including the president. Again, he's not that stupid. He understands the ramifications of this, and he didn't like seeing what was happening in the stock market. So again, very simple. The day the stock market falls, he calls the Wall Street banks, the CEOs, explains to them what he wants them to do. Again, these are the 6 banks here these are the same banks that run the Fed. They run the Fed. So you could look, if anyone doesn't believe, I mean, you got to be deaf, dumb, blind, and everything that you want to think about, that the president and Mnuchin are not directly communicating to the actual banks that run the Fed, explaining to them what's going to happen before it happens. These guys are working in tandem. So again, he's explaining, buy the market, buy the stock market. We're going to inject some confidence into the market by floating out a story that stimulus is coming, and look at the result. It's exactly what they wanted to happen. Could you imagine the cash that Wall Street banks must have made off of that rally yesterday? Me alone, I mean, I'm an infantile entity compared to what these banks are, but I destroyed this market yesterday, destroyed it to the highest order. I am certain I'm not the only trader out here that did the same thing. This is a setup. All it is. It's an incredible thing to see. It's a crime in progress. Am I committing a crime in progress? No, I'm just smart enough to know how to capitalize on it, and that's what I want you to do too. We're not going to let this opportunity pass us by. Not me, and not one of my lions out here is going to let this go by. We are going to shred this thing to death. Period. The end. They want to play their game good. We're going to play our game too, and that's again what the setup is here. It's very simple. So again, we got this whole thing that was set up last week. Stocks fall 800 points. President calls the same banks that run the Fed, okay? Then the next evening, a story gets floated out there about more quantitative easing or stimulus. They don't call it QE anymore. Okay, markets rally. Then yesterday, after the market closes without any fanfare, President gives more concessions to China on a whole multiple of products. This is going to be viewed by the stock market as positive. I'll tell you something else it's going to do. It's going to cause the yield curve to normalize. Why? Again, the bond market is reflective of fear. If fear is removed from the market, the yield curve will normalize. And this is more positive to the market than any amount of rate cuts. I've explained to you that the president can have the Fed cut the federal funds rate any amount. It will not stop the long end of the curve from dropping. However, taking fear out of the market can actually normalize the yield curve. Step one, get in touch with the same banks that run the Fed. Tell them what is going to come down the pike. Together, they make a decision on how they're going to play it. Somebody said, hey, let's float out a story saying, you know, stimulus is coming. This is going to be very positive for the market. It will normalize the yield curve. And that's exactly what happened, people. It's exactly what happened. It's incredible. Then, yesterday, no fanfare, under the radar, more concessions to China. Meanwhile, China's not making concessions on anything and is still threatening to retaliate on the remaining tariffs. The president does not want this. People, let me explain this to you in very clear terms. We just lost the trade war. Not that we really ever had a chance of winning here with President Trump, but he had no intention of this. In the beginning, he did. Let me make this clear to you. In the beginning, the president had a plan to win the trade war, and it was a good one. It really was. He explained how he was going to hit China hard and relentlessly with tariffs. He had it all laid out, and then all of a sudden, the whole thing changed. The whole thing changed. Let me say this. If the president would have stuck to his initial plan on how he wanted to win the trade war, we would already have had a phenomenal deal. The stock market would not be anywhere near it is now. No way. Thousands of points lower. That will not be allowed to happen. When the president witnessed what was happening to the yield curve, what was happening to the stock market, he said, okay, he kind of waved, no, he did. He waves the white flag to China, who has now officially won the trade war. Understand, China, these people are so smart. They know how to play this game, and they were waiting for exactly these things to happen. Anyone that couldn't see this again coming from months and months ago was absolutely blind. And I know a lot of you have written to me personally explaining to me these things. So again, I think all of you that follow this blog or in my chat room on my website, which is free, you're the smartest people out there. That's the truth. Anyway, so that's where we're at. The setup here is very simple. The president did contact the same Wall Street banks that run the Fed. They are running. They are front running the market together. The White House and the same banks that run the Fed are front running the stock market at this particular time. And not only are they front running the market, we now have lost the trade war. We have lost the trade war. Okay? I don't care what you're going to hear come out of the president's mouth, and all of these billions that we're supposedly taking in, for which we are not. The math is very simple. Those billions are obviously going to be less now. We were taking in 60 billion from the tariffs, but the trade gap was costing us 180 billion. That's a net loss of 120 billion that the president will not tell you, because he doesn't think you're smart enough to understand the trade gap or the trade deficit between the United States and China. And this is a shame. It really, really is. Look, I don't care. I really don't care who sits in the pretty White House. It doesn't matter anymore. The game is very simple. The president, whoever it might be, is a mouthpiece for the Wall Street banks, for the military-industrial complex, and we lose. We just lost the trade war. So this is how we're going to play this market moving forward. We understand the conversation that the president had with these 6 banks. This, you cannot have the slightest doubt, is going to be stock market positive. All right. Rumors of more stimulus, we're going to start hearing more. We lost the trade war, and the market doesn't care. Understand, this is very bad for the United States of America. It's bad for our country, but it's very positive for the stock market. That's all the stock market wants to know, and be reassured of, is fear can be removed from the market. The yield curve can normalize. Cash will flow into the stock market. You understand? It's so simple. It's incredible how unbelievable it is. Now, for my lions out here, what this means for you is there's going to be opportunities here, obviously, to get long this market. Do what we did yesterday. I bought calls yesterday, rode them almost to the market. No, I'm sorry, by half the day yesterday. I did phenomenal. Did phenomenal the day before. Let them play their game. We're going to play our game. This is a crime in progress, and we're simply going to ride on it. We're going to ride it, period, the end. And for those of you out here, they're going to say that we're part of the problem. When you stop transacting in fiat dollars, in Federal Reserve notes, when you stop working for these things, then you can be all big and lofty and say that me and my lions are participating in a fraud. So are you. This entire thing is a fraud. Our president is a fraud. The Wall Street banks running the Fed are frauds. This entire system is toxic and corrupt to the highest order. And if you don't get it, and if you don't like it, you don't like hearing these things, you know what to do. Unsubscribe from my blog because you're blind, and I really don't give a damn. For those of you that understand, bravo to you, honestly. Please share this video. Get it out there as far and wide as you can. I'm counting on you. If you're one of my lions, I'm especially relying on you. Let's bring more into the pride and rip the face off of this fake market. That's what we're going to do. We're not going to sit back like a sheep and be sheared. For those of you that are choosing to do that, I feel very sorry for you. I'm out of here. I love you a lot. See you Monday.